In December 2000, the U.S. Congress passed the National Moment of Remembrance Act. At 3 p.m. local time on Memorial Day, Americans are asked to take a minute of silence to remember those who have died in military service. So, wherever you are, put down your drink, set aside your plate of food, and take time to honor those soldiers who have given their lives. Because of them, we continue to enjoy these celebrations with family and friends. Happy Memorial Day! I'm Gus Story in GUS'S Golden Workshop. I created this special plaque in special honor of those who gave their lives for their country and for their loved ones who suffered greatly for their losses. I will hang this proudly in my shop so I will never forget our heroes. Following, I'll take you briefly through how I constructed this project. Special thanks to my grandchildren, Grace and Griffin, for helping me out with this video. I start the project first milling Peruvian walnut for the frame. In this case, the pieces were pre-milled, so I started out ripping the pieces to width on the table saw. Once the pieces were ripped to width, I went to the router table to contour the edges and then routed the grooves for the stripes and rabbet for the back of the frame. Each Memorial Day, a small American flag is placed on every grave. The President or Vice President lays a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. I then use the CNC to carve out the letters and kneeling soldier on the milled cherry board for the plaque. The CNC finishes the job in less than 1 hour. Then it's back to the table saw to trim off the edges, and then to the router table to route the molding, giving it the raised panel look. Now it's off to the epoxy table, where I'll fill in the stripes and plaque with different colored epoxy. The stripes are colored red, symbolizing hardiness and valor, white symbolizing purity and innocence, and blue representing vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Time now to do more sanding. First with 120 grit sandpaper, then the final 180 grit sandpaper. I plan to use epoxy finish, so no need to sand with any finer sandpaper. Since I applied epoxy liberally, the sander does an excellent job of smoothing out the wood and epoxy, bonding the two as one. Now it's time to cut the frame to 8 equal parts as an octagon. Each piece will be cut off at 22.5 degrees angles at my table saw using the miter sled. I chose the frame to be an octagon, symbolizing our military services, our policemen and women, and our firefighters. On Memorial Day, our nation's flag is raised to half-staff from sunrise until noon, and then lifted to full staff to signify hope and to honor all our country's war heroes. Here I'm using a doweling jig to drill 3 holes on each side of the octagon. This will ensure that the joints are strong and won't come apart. Memorial Day was designated to fall on May 30th when flowers are in bloom. Fellow soldiers and family would decorate the graves of their comrades with flowers and flags. Some families would even hold picnics on the graves of their beloved ones. Today, most of us have parties in our backyards rather than at cemeteries, but the true meaning of this day cannot be forgotten. When it's time for the edge sander, one knows they are nearing the end of the project. The edge sander does a great job of sanding edges, as we see here with the octagonal frame. The final step of the project finds us once again at the epoxy table. I'll apply clear epoxy, giving the plaque and frame a very glossy finish. The glossy finish reminds me of the glossy shoes worn by the guards at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Finally, I'll apply some heat to the epoxy, eliminating any bubbles that may be hiding in the wood grain.
In 1915, during World War I, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae was overcome with sorrow when he saw red poppies blooming all over Europe. Seeing a cluster of poppies blanketing Flanders Field in Belgium, it inspired McCrae to write the famous poem In Flanders Field. This moving poem is written from the point of view of those buried beneath the soil. In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses rode a row, that mark our place in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard in the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, the poppies grow in Flanders Fields.